Hey there, Steve here, hope you're doing well. Recently, many of you from this community submitted your riffs to have reviews done on this channel, and I noticed many of the same problems cropping up again and again. So today I'm going to highlight 3 submissions that perfectly illustrate these problems. Most importantly, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks that I like to use to help you improve your riffs. And if you would like to get your ideas reviewed in a future episode, then please check the link in the description and you can learn more there. All right, let's get into it. So first we have Sasha here, and I said, what problems are you having with the idea? They said none. They just want to know how they could improve. So to be specific, let's say, I asked the second question here. So how do you think the idea could be better? And they tell me that they think there could be some better tapping or arpeggiated ideas. So let's take a quick watch of the video. So having a listen to the whole idea, I really like it. It's got that really like tiny moving parts kind of vibe with the chords and the the melody in between there. And I really like the way that you transition between ideas here as well. So overall, I think it's a pretty solid song already. But like you said, you wanted to focus on some of the arpeggiated ideas and some of the tapping licks. So what we'll do is focus on the intro and see what I can do for you there. So it sounds like you're in FACGCE, and I was right, and looks like I got the capo on the third. So I've had a mess around with learning some of the little parts that you're writing in the introduction. And I really like this little widdly bit that you do in the intro after the first tapping one. I thought that would be a great way to actually, start the song as well. You could, instead of having the counting, you could have something like that. I think that sounds quite nice and quite cool. Just a suggestion there. And another suggestion I have as well is instead of this note here, if we bring in this note for your first chord, then you got that kind of wide interval chord that you'll often see, Dylan Mathiasen use of tiny moving parts, and it just leads a bit nicer to your second chord that way. Just a suggestion. You don't have to do that at all. And it kind of sounds nicer when you come back down to this ringing string here that way. And another suggestion as well is like this. I do like that tension. But if you wanted to have less tension in it, then you could use the not the 7th there, but the root instead. So, or completely up to you there as well. Just another suggestion. I really like that lick there, so I'd keep that one. The next chord, I like that little variation you put on the tapping part. And I think that one, complements that chord a bit better, that tapping riff there. So if you really wanted to, instead of having, it does fit with it, you could try and experiment with like a different variation. So again, I'm just going off the just not refine the idea, but just giving you some tips there. And I really like, then you come into this chord here, you got a lovely progression. Yeah, that last chord, and then you do something. I think that one fits really nice. Whatever you end up doing there, that sounds nice, to be honest. You only played the other suggestion I have, sorry, is that you only played the idea twice, and I think that it's like such an established kind of idea that I really want to hear it like 4 times. But as you know, probably yourself, it can get a bit repetitive if it's just the same thing over and over again. So I noticed on the second repetition that you, instead of having that tapping part, you go. So you just skip that tapping part and go back straight into the intro. And I think that's a great way to add a bit of variation. If I had some other ideas for you, what I can hear and what I hear like a lot of bands will do is like add this kind of rhythmic variation into the idea. So you could have like go back to the start of the loop again. And then on the, you could do that dragged out triplet kind of feel to it. And now that's a great way to just really catch your listeners' ears and just, stop the part sounding, too repetitive and boring that way. So the first cycle could be that then. And I really like that soft transition you do into the next section of the song there. But yeah, like you said, I think the overall idea is great there. Just you could work on just messing with some variation and probably extending that intro section just because it's such a cool part. And thanks for your submission there. And hopefully some of that helps you out. So next up we have Oryx, and the problem they're having with that idea is connecting a solo part back to a satisfying conclusion. So I guess you're trying to say there's a section, you're trying to get it back to like the opening riff of the song. And how do they think it could be improved is they think the solo part after the chord section in the middle could be better. It could better reflect the melody used in the chord progression. Okay, I think I can help you out with that. So let's take a quick listen and I'll try and find that part as well that you're talking about. So quickly before we get to that part, I do like, what's that chord you're playing there? Yeah, that's a nice tension voicing. But all I'm going to say is that your guitar sounds either slightly out of tune or it's not intonated. So, that's already got a lot of tension in it. And when you listen to yours, very grating. So it's not too difficult to get the intonation done down here with your screws. Just look it up online and just make sure that the guitar's in tune as well. I think that'll help you out. Anyway, I'm not trying to be nasty, I'm trying to help you out. Hopefully it comes across that way. Yeah, I can hear that it's not tuned or intonated correctly. Another thing you could work on as well is I can see with your strumming hand, you could do with working on your muting technique and your picking technique, because I can hear there's a lot of unwanted string ring going on here. So that's another thing I'd work on, is just string muting. It's important to be not playing the strings that you don't want to be playing while you're playing something, if that makes sense, and to make sure that you're still hitting the strings that you want to hit as well. Let's you're here for the song help, so let's try and find that section. Alright, so this sounds like the section you're talking about. The ideas are really cool there, Just needs a bit better execution. Well, nothing wrong with that transition, like a dynamic one like that. Leaving a little pause as well kind of works well. But I can try and help you out. So you said the solo part after the chord section in the middle could better reflect the melody. So it sounds like going like a C major, right? C major interval, B flat, B minor, A minor, and then going back to that G sound at the beginning there. So what you could do to find notes that would better reflect these chords is to use, use the chord arpeggios themselves is one thing you can do, which you're kind of doing there. The wonderful thing is you're in G major, so you can make a lot of use of these open strings and they will complement the chord really nicely. So I'd probably start messing around like that. And what you can do as well is if you learn your G major scale or just your major scale, you have those pesky modes. But basically the modes are just the major scale repeated. It's just when you put like, this, the actual chord sound itself. You get that. That's when you start getting the feeling of the mode. Otherwise, it would just sound like the major scale itself. So you're more than welcome to use these shapes, and I'll try and put them somewhere for you. Maybe there'll be a link down in the description. These 3-note major mode shapes will help you find ideas along with these chords, because basically you're just wherever you are now. There's going to be some, stuff you can start messing around with there. So going back to your progression here, we could just add some more complementing notes in the last couple of bars and cycles, let's say. So something like now the problem is connecting it back to this sound here. So I might not go back to G. Instead, I might, what I would personally do is work my way up. Try and find a way where I can whittle my way back up to this initial kind of G sound that you got going on. And I'm just holding these root notes here in the example. It's not very practical to play, just so you can hear the the harmony going on at the same time, but you could have a bass player doing that. Just be a straight transition, like that. Yeah, and I'm imagining in my mind someone's, playing this. And that's one way you could transition back into that intro if you didn't want to leave a gap. But I did like your initial idea of just, we could come down. Like having that, like a soft ringing out kind of a pause. Let that drum beat carry on and then go back into the intro there. So I think maybe the transition's not so much of a problem there. It does sound all right to me, or maybe it sounded like you're getting a bit lost and then just end there and then go into that chord, which kind of works. And it's all about creating some kind of repetition, some motive. Soloing is not something I'm particularly that great at, but I'm good at trying to establish an idea and messing with that and adding some variation. Hopefully that helps you out. You've got workings of a great song there. Just work on your technique a bit. Make sure your guitar's sounding nice and intonated, and you'll have that song done in no time. And please share it with me if you go ahead and, make some iterations of that one. Thanks for sharing, Oryx, and good luck with your idea. So moving on to our last submission for today, we have Mist. And their problem is, after working on their song idea, it's starting to feel a bit stale in their head, which happens to a lot of us, right? They feel like they don't know how to transition between sections well or in an interesting way. They also feel like when they write things, they end up feeling more like classical theme and variation type pieces rather than math rock songs. Okay, and how do they think they could improve the idea? Well, they would like to transition more naturally between sections and introduce some variation in rhythm and harmony that feels cohesive but boring. Not boring, sorry. Yeah, I think I can help you out here. So quickly, let's take a listen to the idea and we'll get to that. Okay, so you're going back to that first motif there. All right, some really, really interesting ideas now. I'm getting a lot of like Chon vibes from a lot of those major and minor, chords like the major sevens and minor nine chords that you're using there. So you got some really cool ideas there. One thing I was going to say was I'm not sure if you'd just like not looping sections just to keep it short so you can give me an overview of the entire song. But I think a lot of the problems lie in that fact that you just kind of gloss over each section. You don't really give each section justice. And in my opinion, like even bands that just do one cycle of an idea, they still establish that idea and try and build it up. Like bands, if you listen to like Meet Me in St. Louis, their variations on Swing album is a fantastic example of this. Like none of the sections truly repeat on that record, but they'll establish a section and they'll mess around with it and really, give it some life before they move on to the next section. And you'll hear this done in like Farraquet as well, and some Terramella songs too. So it's worth checking that out. This is typically how I write a lot of mountain songs too. I'll establish an idea. So that song, Friend, it has that introduction and then it goes off on tangents of all different sections that kind of establish themselves before moving on to the next. And it's always fun playing with transitions when you write this way. And then I'll always end up just lumping that back on the outro of the song. So it's like the intro and the outro is the same. And it's typically how I've written ideas. And I feel like you're kind of doing the same thing here. You had that intro and where I just got to here, I can see that we've kind of come back to this 3-chord introduction. Rambling on, but so to address your concerns with the piece, let's take a look at those introduction chords and let's look at ways we could start making it a bit more mathy. And then perhaps we'll look at how we can transition to the next section of your song, just to give you some ideas of what you could potentially do. So in the intro, so I feel like you'd only do one repeat, then you jump straight to this, that D minor 9 chord there. So I think there's room to establish this section a bit more at the introduction. Whatever you do, it kind of has that, a Chon Sleepy Tea feel to it. But if you wanted to make it a bit more math, we could start messing, make it feel a bit more swingy feeling, and syncopation we could add there, if to use a better terminology, but we could add like kind of that feel to it instead. And we can still use that A major shape that you're using in the intro a lot here. To establish an idea, and you could use the power chord there or the fifth, right? So shell voicing. Still sounds a bit like not mathy enough for what I like anyway, so I'd probably I'm going to throw in something that's unexpected, like a stop and a start, let's say. So just throwing that chord there and transitioning to the next one will make it sound a bit more, you know, technical. And I could put it there on the repeat, or I could even miss it out to make it sound a bit more, even more angular, right? In the end, yeah, that feels, it might even be odd time if I was to bother counting it, but yeah, that jumps even more there. Kind of establish an idea here. Like I said, I think you got potential just to repeat it a bit more before you get to this A major chord, and then, you know, kind of change key there. So it's going to get boring really quickly though if we just keep repeating that. So we can introduce our math rock's best friend, some variation, and you'll hear this all the time. Like if you just listen to any math rock song that has an established riff, there's always like, especially you hear this like in Cover and by, you know, Yvette Young does this all the time. She'll have an established idea and she'll add like a slight little twist, a bit of variation just to keep things interesting. And Dylan Mathias as well have tiny moving parts, just to mention another. What we could do is one of my favorite ways to transition. There's plenty of ways you can do this. I've studied countless math rock songs, and that reminds me to remind you that patrons can head over to Patreon and you can get a cheat sheet basically of all of these how to add variations to an idea, and also different ways that you can transition in math rock style songs as well. So there'll be a link down below for that in the description. So what I could do here is, one of my favorite ways is to extend an idea, because it suddenly catches your ear. You know, if you've got this established groove going on, you know, we could extend this idea here. You know, something like that. We could introduce some tapping parts. So yeah, and that would like just suddenly stand out and kind of catch your attention there. So that's one way you could add variation into it. You could mess with shortening and lengthening ideas. That's one great way to do it. You could add just subtle variation to the, you know, like to the riff that you're using as well, or mess with the rhythm of it as well. We could do the, you know, the old triplet trick as well there. So next, let's look at how we could actually transition from this this section to your next section there. It's a bit jarring at the moment, in my opinion. That A major 7 chord going to this kind of key change here to the D minor 9. So if I wanted something that was a bit more complementing, for example, in my song Friend, I have this like picking section. And that section goes into this like dynamically like loud, like that. So how do I get from there to there? It's not the best kind of jump. So what I do instead is I try to find something that's quite complementing. So here I've got going from where was it again? So going from this to, it's quite a jump. So what I'll do instead is find, you know, something that would, a chord that's going to fit and voice lead nicely to this one. And then because I want to keep in the theme of this open strings, I landed on this minor voicing instead, and then so that like transitions a lot nicer in my own opinion. So we could do something similar in your song, because you're playing this A major sound. Kind of it is kind of jarring to me. Maybe you could keep that, but one way you could get around this is actually just to remove the major or minor tonality, the major third. And then instead we could try with like a sus sound instead. So we haven't got that third's going to be replaced with the ninth, the second here. So for example, you could do your chord progression. So let's get that established in our mind. It doesn't feel so jarring, right? Especially if I end on this note, because it kind of leads nicely down here. Another way you could do it is looking at, well, fortunately when I was writing this piece I worked out that this tapping part here is actually, what I'll do as well is look at like, well, what notes are in the old key and what notes are in this new key if I'm like actually transitioning to different keys, let's say, or if it's just a borrowed chord, I can still look at whatever key that's in, you see. And so we can work out that, that D minor 9 sound luckily fits our these tapping notes here. So you could even do like I could start messing with that minor pentatonic sound there. I think that just might be more of a complementing smooth transition. But overall, I don't want to discourage you because I think the ideas that you got here are great. You've just, I'm not sure if you're just rushing through them so you can show me all the parts, but I think you just need to establish each idea a bit more, and then your song probably won't feel as stale there. If you just learn a few more like of your favorite kind of math rock, Midwest emo style songs and learn the ways that they strum the guitar and stuff, these are really great ways as well to start breaking out more of that classical feel and more into the the rhythmic kind of things that you're going to get in math rock and Midwest emo. Anyway, I hope that rambling helps you out there, Mist, and good luck with your song idea. If you do finish it, please make sure you share with me because I'm really interested to hear that one. So if you'd like to get in on the next round of submissions, hit up the link in the description, sign up to the newsletter, and that's where I'll be putting out a call for submissions there. If you've already submitted a riff, please keep in mind that it will be on the same form. So if I get through to it, it might be in a future episode, so you don't need to resubmit your ideas. Anyway, thanks for watching. Really hope you enjoyed the episode. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.